Hello, my name is Bill Barberg, the president of Insight Formation, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you today the concept of strategy-aligned management and explaining the way that these concepts are key to excellent performance using the balanced scorecard methodology. The top picture here shows some things that are very common. An organization may agree on the high-level goals shown off to the right and represented by the big blue arrow. They all agree it's good to go in a general direction. But all those little black arrows represent the choices, the decisions, the actions that are going on in different parts of the organization. And those are typically not aligned very well. So the organizations fall short of achieving their goals. We call that the execution gap. Another way of looking at the execution gap is to look at how the goals of a strategic plan are and how the organization aspires to reach certain financial or performance goals and then track the actual performance over time. And the reality typically falls pretty far short of what was planned. In the years following the original book, Kaplan and Norton have written 4 additional books, and these look at what organizations have done in strategy management in using these techniques to achieve breakthrough results. And it's really the concepts and the tools of the last 4 books that are the most powerful and that we'll be focusing on today. One of the first things to understand about the balanced scorecard is that the richer methodology is much, much more than about measurement and balance. In fact, one of the co-creators, Robert Kaplan, emphasized to a group of accountants in 2005 that they should not go on a hunt for the right key performance indicators. He said that's not the answer, and admitted that they didn't understand that in 1992. What he explained in another conference is that a successful balanced scorecard program starts with the recognition that it's not a metrics project. It's a change process. It's about how do we get from where we are today to where we want to be? How do we align our efforts? How do we work as a team? How do we apply our resources in the most efficient manner to implement our strategy? You can pull together the executives, you can bring in a consultant to facilitate, and they may have a lot of brilliant ideas. But how do those brilliant ideas get from the boardroom or the conference center down to the employees who need to implement them? In most cases, not very well. You may be familiar with the practice. You've perhaps been in a room with a facilitator, and at the end of the day, there's a lot of great conversation, and the walls are papered with flip chart paper with great ideas on them. But then ask yourself, how does that information get used? What happens to it? Maybe it gets typed up into nice notes and presentations and put in a big binder. And maybe your company tries the management philosophy of MBBD, managing by big documents. It's really not a very good approach. It doesn't work for a lot of reasons. They're too big to read, they don't have enough detail, they don't change. So what happens to these big documents? Pretty much everyone says the same thing. They sit on the shelf. And they don't get used. And that's a lot of time and effort that goes into developing a strategy which people admit sits on the shelf and doesn't get looked at and doesn't really help people align. Strategy-aligned management defines some of the better ways to define and manage strategy, to communicate the plan, to monitor the achievement of the plan, to make modifications as the environment changes so you can improve the effectiveness of the organization. I mentioned Carlson Hotels was one of the first clients that really adopted this strategy-aligned management approach, and they doubled their profits in 3 years when they began to work as a team, prioritize resources, make every person understand how their work mattered, and their employee satisfaction scores went up. And their president, Jay Witzel, heartily endorsed this approach and the use of technology, the software, to support strategy management. So I'd like to just wrap up with a few concluding points. Why is SAM, or strategy-aligned management, different? Is it just the flavor of the day? Well, clearly it's been evolving and maturing over 20 years. It's not a fad. It's really an established best practice in how to manage. And it's not a reporting system. It's about change management. It's about vision attainment. It's about getting your team together and saying, we all want to be someplace better than we are today, and we each have a role to play. Let's get that clarified. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's have transparency on how we're going to get there. Or as one way of defining it is strategy-aligned management will enable us to translate our strategy into operational objectives that drive behavior and performance to achieve superior results.